I, 18, female, overheard conversations with my mom and my dad, 39 female, and 40 male, about how they planned to kick me out shortly after my 18th birthday. The way they were talking about it seemed like they were dead serious, and the way it was brought up multiple times made it seem like they were going to kick me out too. So I decided that I wouldn't give them the chance to kick me out and made plans with my friend Riley, 17 me, female, to stay at her place until I graduated and moved into a college dorm or had an apartment of my own. Riley's parents were horrified at the thought my parents would kick me out the second I turned 18 and agreed to let me stay at their place as long as I graduated high school. Riley, her parents, and my boyfriend Cole, 18 male, came after midnight to help me take my belongings to their car and drive me to Riley's house. My parents woke up in the middle of this and asked me what the hell was going. I kind of shrugged and told them that I was moving out before they could kick me out. My parents tried to deny this and attempted to stop me from leaving, but there was nothing that they could do since I'm a legal adult. By the way, I wasn't just going to leave in the middle of the night without any goodbye. I already put a note on the kitchen table where my mom goes to first in the morning, explaining what happened. Right now I'm at Riley's house in their spare bedroom, and I've gotten bombarded with calls from my parents asking me to come back and not to tell my grandparents about this. In one text, my mom called me an ungrateful bitch for leaving in the middle of the night, and that she should have kicked me out sooner. Now for the update. I honestly forget about this account and struggled to remember the password, but here we go. A lot of shocking information was revealed, and this is just my brief, messy account of it. So, like you all suggested I do, I told my grandparents what happened with screenshots of my parents' texts after I went to Riley's house. Let me tell you that they were livid at what my parents were saying to me and the fact they were planning to kick me out. I ended up meeting up with them and staying with them at their place for a few days while they tried to figure out what the fuck was going on with my parents. My mom and dad were being sent money monthly by my grandma and grandpa for my college fund since they mostly depleted it after my brother Alex moved out because he was tired of them begging him for money due to their gambling addictions. My mom admitted that their plan was to kick me out, but act like I moved out willingly because I found an apartment and get double the money that they were previously getting to help out with my rent money once they asked my grandparents for it. Grandma yelled at my mom over the phone and told her that she'd never see a dime of her money again. She told my mom that she would rewrite her will so that the money my mom would have gotten would go to me, which my mom freaked out at. My dad blew up my phone one more time before I blocked both him and my mom's numbers for good, calling me an evil cunt and telling me that he wished my mom aborted me. So yeah. I talked with my brother Alex, and the only thing he really had to say, or ask, I guess, was why our parents' scummy behavior hadn't been called out when they were trying to legitimately steal his paychecks to go gamble. I'm sorry if this is kind of rambly, but this was the best I could do at the moment. Thank you all for your advice, and I'll maybe give another update if anything else happens, but I doubt it will. Story 2. I'll try to keep this short because I'm so stunned I think I've stopped being able to process things. I've been with my fiance for 4 years. We've been engaged since last year and actively planning the wedding. Last month, we moved to a new city across the country because my fiance got an amazing job offer. I wasn't happy about it since I had to quit my job and all our family and friends were in the city we left. I was kind of a jerk during the moving process, but I've come around since getting here. My fiance kept talking about this guy she worked with at her new job, and it made me uneasy. I went to a few after-work events where he showed up, and he seemed like a total asshole, very full of himself, artistic type. I didn't like the way he interacted with my fiance, and we would occasionally fight about it. Tuesday night, she got home really late, sat me down, and broke up with me. She said she felt an immediate bond with this coworker that's stronger than anything she's ever felt before. This from the woman who just a few months ago I held in my arms while watching the stars, as she told me she's never felt more at peace than when she's beside me. I laid awake on the couch all night feeling like I was continually being punched in the stomach. I didn't fall asleep until 3:00 p.m. yesterday and stayed asleep until this morning when she woke me up. Basically, she's having this asshole over for Valentine's Day and demanded she get the apartment to herself. Between the move, all the deposits we had been putting for wedding stuff, and not having a job since we moved out here, I have literally no money for a hotel or anything else. We got into a big fight because I called her out and said she knew I had nowhere else to go. She said that's not her problem, she's done solving my problems for me, and that I needed to fix this one on my own. I guess his roommate is having a date over, so my fiance offered our place for her date with the asshole. She says this is happening no matter what I say. So, yeah, what the hell am I supposed to do? Edit 1, I appreciate everyone telling me I should stand my ground. I told my fiance I wouldn't leave the apartment, but I don't think it's a threat I can carry through with. I will be emotionally devastated if I have to watch the woman I love and care for more than anyone else date someone right in front of me in my own home. Other suggestions would be appreciated. Edit 2, thank you so much everyone for all your suggestions. I can't keep up with all the comments. It's almost overwhelming given everything that's going on in my life right now. I'm going to take a walk and try to clear my head. I just can't bring myself to tell my family and friends what's happened. It feels so embarrassing. I like the ideas about trying to reach a compromise. I have a lot to think about. Now for the update. Part of the reason I didn't update afterward was because I was extremely embarrassed with how things turned out. It's only because of some intense therapy that I'm able to be honest and okay with telling this story. Basically, I decided to make one last big attempt at winning her 26/F back. Right after we got engaged, my ex had a close relative succumb to a long-time illness. This relative was very happy that she lived long enough to see us get engaged. When my ex was a child, this relative had given my ex a charm that she wore all the time. A few months after the relative died, my ex lost the charm, and it was like the relative died a second time. As we packed up the apartment to move to the new city, I found the charm. Rather than give it back immediately, I decided that I would keep it in a safe place and surprise my ex with it at our wedding. I thought it would be a meaningful way to include this relative in a moment where she would be deeply missed. Somehow I got in my head that if I showed her the charm on Valentine's Day, she'd remember everything that we shared and that I could cut through whatever fog she was caught up in. I was under the impression that my ex would come home after work by herself to get the place ready for her date. I was planning to use this alone time to give her the charm and either win her back or lose decisively and leave before her date showed up. But instead, she showed up with the asshole from her job. That threw me through a loop big time, and it was incredibly awkward. He was patronizing. She became livid that I stole her charm. I struggled to articulate myself. It was the most embarrassed I've ever been. I got out of there and literally walked around all night until it got so cold I couldn't stand it anymore. I went back to the apartment building around 4 a.m. and in what was a personal low point, fell asleep in the hallway outside our apartment. But that was the low point. There have been high points since then. I was able to move back to my hometown, and my old employer gave me my old job back. I even met someone else and we dated for a while. We just broke up though. It sucks to be alone again on Valentine's Day, but I've learned it's okay to be sad every once in a while. And compared to last year, this year is practically a celebration. Therapy gave me a wonder perspective on life and some great coping skills for when times get difficult. As for my ex, I heard she married the asshole guy from work. Her sister would text me occasionally, and apparently her family hates the guy. Whatever, it's not my problem anymore. Lastly, I want to thank everyone on Reddit. Sincerely. People offered to buy me a ticket home. Other people offered to hang out with me if we happened to be in the same city. Some people even offered just to Skype with me so I could have someone to talk with. Even though I didn't respond, your messages meant so much to me. Thank you. Story 3. Back in the late 70s, my wife and I had a new baby and a couple of dogs. Pumpkin was a purebred Shetland sheepdog. Cape, Sheltie, and Tramp was a mongrel who looked remarkably like the mutt in the Disney cartoon movie Lady and the Tramp. The new baby was real young. Didn't look like all that much back then, but he grew up into an impressively brilliant and damn big man. But this isn't about him. It's about the Sheltie, our next-door neighbor, and something called kudzu. If you haven't lived in the Southeast, you probably don't know what kudzu is. It's an oriental vine that grows well in unimproved soil, and it's great for stopping erosion. During the early 30s, the Great Depression, soil erosion was a huge problem in the Deep South. Some genius decided that kudzu, which grows very fast, could hold the soil. Plus, cows found it good eating, so why not? They imported a shit pot full of kudzu from Japan in the 30s, and it wasn't long before it was totally out of control. It had no natural predators, nor insects, or even diseases to keep it in check. And, well, hot damn, Skippy, it all but took over the South. For example, after my senior year in high school, '69, I was selling Fuller brushes door to door. It paid better than McDonald's, got me out in the sun, and it was easier than mowing lawns in steeply hilly Atlanta. One day I parked next to an empty lot that had some kudzu, then started walking the neighborhood, selling my wares. 3 hours later, a kudzu vine had grown at least 3 feet from where it had been, across a previously pristine sidewalk, and wrapped around one of my tires and axles. Thanks to a fully differential, one tire, the one wrapped with kudzu, spun like a madman, while the other did jack. I had to call a wrecker to pull my Impala out of the expanding kudzu patch. I mean, that stuff grew fast. Anyway, back to the story. Almost a decade after the above kudzu event, my next-door neighbor really annoyed me by complaining about my dog Pumpkin, the Sheltie, and his barking. Yeah, he barked a lot, but it was I'm having fun bark, not a hostile or nasty bark. Anyway, his constant complaining royally pissed me off. I was something of a hothead back in those days until I decided that a little late-night guerrilla warfare was in order. A year or so before, I'd found a display at the supermarket with seeds for kids, vegetable spaghetti, a kind of fibrous gourd was one of them, but another, and this was really irresponsible, was marketed as Rapunzel's vine, in lieu of her hair, in that it grew very fast and it clung to brick walls. In fine print, they admitted it was kudzu. Just for laughs, I'd bought a packet. Now I decided to use them on my neighbor. In college, we had a tradition of getting revenge by dressing up as the Midnight Avenger. For this, you'd wear a mask, and if you were ambitious, you wore a cape too, but for the rest, you were naked and would let the night shield you from identity harm. Copious amounts of alcohol didn't hurt either. I told my wife it was time for the Midnight Avenger to ride again. A much more reasonable person than I was, she talked me out of that, or at least the nudity and the booze. I wish she'd talked me out of the kudzu too, you see. I kind of forgot the guy lived next to me, and kudzu wasn't stopped by chain link fences. So I made my raid and seeded his shrubbery beds. Not all of it germinated, but enough did. Within weeks, it was freaking out of control. I spent the next 18 months using everything from muscle power to kerosene to Roundup to kill the kudzu as it crossed into my yard. Finally, I just moved. What else was I to do? This, by the way, was inspired by a prank that I definitely did not do. I'm not sure the statute of limitations has expired, so I admit nothing. In fact, this never even happened. I mean, hey, are you going to believe me? Or are you going to research old back issues of the Athens Daily News or the Red and Black, the on-campus newspaper at the University of Georgia? Back in the late 60s and early 70s, the football team members were the God Kings on campus. They could do no wrong, not even running over with their cars members of the debate team, socially the exact opposite of the football jocks. I know this because I was on the debate team. A car full of drunk footballers tried very hard to run me over. Smashing their car in the process, the cops came and gave me a hard time for provoking the footballers. Seriously. So, a few friends of mine and I decided that revenge was required. Now, the football field, not the stadium, but the field itself, is surrounded by a magnificent hedge that was a point of student pride and had long since gone down in the lore of the school. Anyway, I hit on the idea of getting some kudzu cuttings, sneaking onto the field and planting them randomly among the hedges. There was one largely unknown way of sneaking inside the stadium. There was a small creek that flowed under the stadium, entering and leaving via galvanized pipes. So if this really happened, which it absolutely did not, a few mates and I made our entrance into the stadium. It was pitch black, of course, and we scared the crap out of some sewer rats that lived in this tunnel, but we got in, planted the kudzu, and got out again. Or we would have, if this had actually happened, which of course it did not. If we'd done that, the kudzu would have taken over and eaten the hedges in no time flat. It grew very fast. They would have had to rip out the hedge, purge the soil of all things kudzu, then restore the soil and plant new, mature hedges in time for the fall football season. We were never caught because this never happened, but if it had happened, that's how I'd have done it, just to avenge myself on the way too privileged footballers at good old UGA. Go, you hairy dogs. That's one of my favorite pro revenge stories.